Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Fahriansyah. I'm from class B with ID number H012130. So today I will describe about the story of the Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawtorne in 1850 in American literature period. So there's a several thing or 9 steps that I want to describe about this story. The first is biography of author until the message of this story. So let's start to the first step, biography of author. Nathaniel Hawthorne, born July 4, 1804, Salem, Massachusetts. Died May 19, 1864 in age 59. Plymouth in New Hampshire. The Hours and Annals Hall of Fame 1900. Notable works: Dr. Hager's Experiment, Fenshave, Moses from an Old Man's, My Kinsman, Major Molyneux, Rappaccini's Daughter, Roger Malfin's Burial, Tangled Tales for Girls and Boys, The Blithedale Romance, and The Classical Railroad. There's a lot hours from the Nathaniel Hawthorne. The Nathaniel Hawthorne is to movement or style American Renaissance. He is a novelist and short story writer, a central figure in the American Renaissance. Best known works include The Scarlet Letter in 1850 and The House of Seven Gables in 1851. Obsessed with the effects of Puritanism in New England, with the dark side of the human nature, with themes of sin, guilt, secrecy, intellectual, and moral. In his family, he has children, namely Julian Hawthorne, Rose Hawthorne, Lathrop, Una Hawthorne, and his spouse or his wife, Sophia Hawthorne. And his grandchildren, Hildred Hawthorne, Gladys Hawthorne, John Francis Hawthorne, and Imogen Hawthorne, and others. Next is about History of Personal Life by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Hawthorne's life. He is born in Salem, Massachusetts, as we know, a descendant of prominent New England Puritans. William passed sentence on Quakers. William's sons judged in the Salem witchcraft trial of 1692. His grandfather, a Revolutionary War hero. His father, a sea captain who died of yellow fever when Hawthorne was 4 years old. And his mother lived a casual, secluded life after his father's death, which influenced her son's solitary attitude. Hawthorne spent most of his early years in Salem in a solitary fashion, starting to write here after college graduation uh, in Salem. In 1842, Hawthorne became friends with the Transcendentalists in Constant, Emerson, and Thoreau, who also drew on the Puritan legacy. Next, at the Bowdoin College in 1821 until 24, among his friends were Longfellow and Franklin Pierce, who became the 14th president of the United States. and he was unable to earn a living as writer ban in 1846. He was appointed a surveyor of the port of Salem, and Hawthorne died on May 19, 1864 in Plymouth, New Hampshire, on a trip to the mountain with his friend Franklin Pierce. The third steps is the other later works by of Nathaniel Hawthorne as a novelist or writer this story. Among Hawthorne's most widely anthologized stories are Young Goodman Brown in 1835, The Black Minister's Veil in 1836, The Birthmark in 1843, A Rapacini's Daughter in 1844, Twice Told Tales in 1867, Moses from an Older Man's in 1846, The House of Seven Goblins in 1851, The Bleed-Head Romance in 1852, and The Marble Fan in 1860. Next is synopsis in this story. Hester Prynne was pregnant and gave birth, even though she had been separated from her husband for 2 years. Boston was an uproar. It was unimaginable that a wife who was supposed to be decent and honorable would give birth to an illegitimate child. A great disgrace to the Puritan society of 17th century Boston. The townspeople punished her by driving a big red A that stood for adultery and put her on public trial. Hester's life was over, or was it? Among the crowd, it turns out that Mr. Payne has just arrived in Boston. Hester's husband now calls himself Roger Sillingford. Obsessed with discovering the identity of Hester's illicit lover, Shillingworth disguises himself as a doctor to avenge his wife's infidelity. The Scarlet Letter is a story of crime, sin, guilt, punishment, and redemption. Nathaniel Hawthorne depicts not only the role of the woman in social change, but also their rights and the relationship with the man in the rigid moral climate of the 17th century New England. The Scarlet Letter is one of the American greatest classics and has been adapted into numerous plays and movies. It is also the first story to introduce the first true heroine in American fiction. Despite its bold and controversial themes, the is timeless in demonstrating the moral truths inherent in human affairs that are timeless in time and space. And next is the similarities of the author and his works. Uh, as we know, the story of and novels of the Hawthorne is important values, his theme and technique. And as we know, he is a novelist with the melancholy and emotionally style. And he is implicit is the unwillingness about the isolation of each individual from his followers. This theme, like others, is based on beliefs derived from Hawthorne's own experience. Another of Hawthorne's significant interest in his fiction is the nature of sin and repentance. During a period when many New England intellectuals were Unitarians or Transcendentalists, Hawthorne tended to find truth in the widely rejected beliefs of his day, those of his Puritan ancestor. While not formally converting to Calvinism, this author, Professor Harvard, uh, and Snyder comments in the Puritan mind by seeing the empirical truth behind the Calvinist symbol. And he discovered what the Puritans proclaim but seldom practice, a spirit of pity, humility, and tragedy in the face of God's unexpected grace. Thus, in the ministers Blakevale, Young God Brown, and other stories, Hawtorne recounts the universal depravity of humanity. In the Scarlet Letter, the sinner's need for penance and contrition is told. In Marble Fawn, the origin of sin is discussed, and the other narratives, they expect the aspect of sin and its redemption. That's uh, a lot of about the literary work and the the connection or the relation, and the literary works still relate about himself because the works is actually from his experience. Next is analysis character. The first is Hester Prynne. Hester is the book's protagonist and the wearer of the scarlet letter that gives the book its leader. The leather of the patch of fabric in the shape of an age signifies that Hester is an adulterer. As a young woman, Hester married an elderly scholar, Chillingworth, who sent her ahead to America to live, but never followed her. While waiting for him, she had an affair with a Puritan minister and named Dimesdale, Arthur Dimesdale, after which she gave birth to Pearl. Hester is passionate but also strong. She endures years of shame and scorn. She equals both her husband and he love in her intelligence and thoughtfulness. Her alienation puts her in the position to make acute observation about her community, particularly about its treatment of the woman. Next is Pearl. Hester's illegitimate daughter Pearl is a young girl with a moody, mischievous spirit and ability to perceive things that others do not. For example, she quickly discerns the truth about her mother and Tim's tale. The townspeople say that she barely seems human and spread rumors that her unknown father is actually devil. She is wise far beyond her years, frequently engaging in ironic play having to do with her mother's scarlet letter. Next, the third character is Roger Chillingworth, or the Hester husband. She he's actually husband in disguise. He is much older than Heston and sent her to America while he settled his affairs in Europe. Because he is captured by Native Americans, he arrives in Boston belatedly and finds Hester and her illegitimate child being displayed on the scaffold. He lusts for revenge and thus decide to stay in Boston despite his wife's betrayal and disgrace. He's a scholar and uses his knowledge to disguise himself as a doctor, intention discovering and tormenting Hester's anonymous lover. Chillingworth is self-absorbed and both physically and psychology monstrous. His single-minded pursuit of retribution reveals him to be the most malevolent character in the novel. And the next is a reference to Arthur Dimmesdale, or Dimmesdale is a young man who achieved fame in England and as a pastor too and theologian, then immigrate to America. In a moment of the weakness, he and Hester became lovers. Although he will not confess it publicly, he's the father of her child. Okay, he deals with his guilt with tormenting himself physically and psychology, developing a hair condition as a result. Dimsdale is an intelligent and emotional man. His sermons are those masterpieces of eloquence and persuasiveness. His commitment to this congregation are in constant conflict with his feelings of sinfulness and his Bellingham governor. Bellingham is a wealthy, elderly gentleman who spends much of his time consulting with the other town fathers. Despite his role as a governor of a fledgling American society, he very much resembles a traditional English aristocrat. Bellingham tends to strictly adhere to the rules, but they is easily swayed by Timothy's eloquence. He remains blind to the misbehaviors taking place in his own house. His sister, Mr. Hobbins, is a witch. Next is the analysis story in this story, this Scarlet. So there's so many perception, there's so many analysis to the author about this story. But the hottest perception toward Puritans in which they are hypocrites. They are people who have religion, but their attitude and behavior are far from religiosity. The objective of this analysis are to see the difference between religion and religiosity and to find out the deviation of the Puritans as a religious people. The analysis covers the hypocrite of Puritan, Hawthorne's perception toward Puritans, self-contemplation that experienced by Hester. As we know, Hester is a character which commits sins, but she has a high religiosity. Through Hester, Hawthorne wants to criticize Puritan society because their attitude doesn't reflect as a people with religion. This analysis towards to the another author the, and this analysis is uh, as the result tells that a person who has religion will be meaningless if there is no religiosity in it. Religiosity is important for every person in order to create balance between a relationship to God and humanity. That is why they do not become hypocrites. Experience by Arthur Dimsdale. All right. This is mm, in the side of psychology in the one of the character in this story. Yeah. That is Arthur Dimsdale as the main character in this Scarlet Letter novel. The types of anxiety disorder consists of three types. There are general anxiety disorder, social phobia, and panic. This is a psychology side to these to describe these main characters. And the last one is the message of this story. The message of this story is about adultery. Adultery considered commonplace, different then and different now. Modern life has made the morals of the younger generation weak. Religion has become a formality and rules are something to be broken. If we compare then life of Puritan society with the modern society today, of course, there are many things that distinguish guys distinguish it, especially in matters concerning ethics or public morals. Regarding adultery, in the 20th century in Boston, the Puritans were very much against it. They considered that adultery was a crime and should be severely punished. If we look at it today, it seems as adultery has become a common thing, even one of the jobs for some people. Aceh customary law. If you want to see a group of people who have laws similar to Puritans, Aceh can be one of the cities in Indonesia that still maintains religious law. or law of Islam. In Aceh, anyone commit, committing adultery will be punished according to Islamic law by being flogged 100 times. Yeah, if we get someone who commit adultery, it will be punished to Islamic law to according to Islamic law by being flogged 100 times. This law is not made by the people of Aceh itself, but this law comes from God in the Quran. Not only that, in the West Aceh area, there is a regulation that prohibits women from wearing thigh pants or jeans. In accordance with Islamic law, a woman must cover her aurat and must be not show her body shape. From the book The Scarlet Letter, we can learn from the Puritan society that strongly upholds the laws they have made, maintains the morals of the society by making rules based on holy books, and becomes a big influence for Hester's life to change for the better. So if the Puritans and the law of Puritans and the law of Quran of the study of Islamic is a little bit is the same is the same by their rule. So there's a law if you uh, not don't follow their rules, you will be punished. Thank you very much. I think that's all for me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.